We've kind of already beat a dead horse with this one, and I've kind of hinted who I am going for in this game, considering the stakes that are involved here. Welcome back, everyone. This is Bando's Breakdowns, episode 61. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Big show this week. One of the last shows in the month of September, at least for the full week of September, if you will. It is Friday, September 26th, at the time that this is coming out. So hope you guys have had a great week. This should be a fun show, and let's get into it. But before we get into it, just a few quick reminders. Very important. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, do what you have to do. YouTube.com/EDP Network. Would greatly appreciate all of your guys' support on this episode. If you are watching on the video only side, if you are listening on the audio only side, please be sure to check out Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, and so much more. And again, you can follow the show on social media at Bando's Breakdown. So thanks again for all of that. And then just a quick reminder that we will hear from our friends over at Playback. Again, Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. Stay tuned for a message from our friends over there later on in the show. So what we're going to be talking about today, let's get into it. So Zain's overview as per usual, just kind of giving you the docket of what we're going to be discussing. We have a brand new UFC Rio main event. Charles Oliveira remains on the card. We will talk some college football. We're going to talk about week 4, recap that. How did Illinois do against Indiana? How did the rest of the Big Ten fare this past weekend as well? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the best games in week 5 in college football because there are a boatload of them. We'll get into a full-on preview of Illinois USC. We'll talk about UFC Perth. We'll talk about the latest with McGregor versus Chandler, whether I believe that fight happens, and so much more. So let's get into it. So as of Tuesday night, Charles Oliveira has a new opponent. It is Mateusz Gamrot in the main event of UFC Rio. Still a 5-round fight, but only on a couple weeks' notice. His original opponent, Rafael Fiziev, had to pull out due to an undisclosed injury. So Oliveira gets a main event slot there. Huge fight for him. Huge bounce-back opportunity after losing to Ilia Topuria. I don't know if I love the matchup per se, but I can tell you this. Short notice fights are a trap because you don't know what you know until you know. And the fact of the matter is, Mateusz Gamrot is coming into enemy territory in Brazil, sold-out crowd. Could Charles Oliveira retire after this fight? That's the rumbling that's going around the MMA circles right now as to whether or not he will remain a focal point in the UFC lightweight division. That remains to be seen. I like the fight. I'm just nervous for Oliveira because of all he had to go through to get this fight. There was a lot of confusion. He went out in the media and talked about how guys were turning fights down, or guys were thinking of accepting fights and they wouldn't accept fights. And he called all of it a bad look, which I don't blame him for doing. I don't know. I think all of this is really interesting, and I hope it works out for him. I really do. But I'm worried for him. I'm worried that his mind is going to be in other places. I'm worried that it's too short notice. I'm even worried about picking him. I understand it's the end of September. We're about a few weeks out from the event, but still, it's a very, very much one of those circumstances where I just don't know what version of him we're going to get. So that's going to be interesting to see as well, going into that fight and just kind of how it all unfolds. But again, UFC Rio, Saturday, October 11th, only on ESPN Plus. Charles Oliveira makes his return to the octagon, except this time, once again, a short notice opponent will be standing across from him in the blue corner. So there's that. All right, let's talk about some college football. Biggest college football week 4 takeaways. Starting in the Big Ten, of course, with the obvious, Indiana knocking off Illinois 63-10 in a battle of top 25, or rather top 15 squads. And a disappointing loss for Illinois here. Very, very underwhelming performance. Luke Altmaier sacked 7 times. Fernando Mendoza only 2 incompletions, 5 touchdown passes. just a complete domination from Indiana. That to me was the biggest takeaway, that Indiana is a legit team. Anybody who thinks that they're not legit, I understand. They played 3 cupcake opponents before this, but even as an Illinois guy, I can tell you this: Indiana proved me wrong and the rest of the country wrong. Those who don't follow the program closely, we didn't know what we were talking about clearly when we said that Indiana wasn't one of these teams to mess with in the Big Ten, and it proved that and then some Saturday night in Bloomington. I thought it was a very, very impressive performance by them. What other games stuck out to me? Oregon looked good this past week as well in that Civil War game against Oregon State. Who else was really good? I liked Washington's win over Washington State. I thought they looked good. I liked the way USC played against Michigan State. They put up a boatload of points. They're a really good offense, and we'll get into them in just a little bit. But still, I think they're a force to be reckoned with in the Big Ten as well. South Carolina, it seems like they've totally fallen off. And without Lenora Sellers, it's they're definitely a different football team. If he plays this week, though, that'll be really interesting as well. And what others stuck out? Florida State is still rolling in the ACC. They're getting a huge win, a statement win against a non-conference opponent this week. They have a huge game against Miami a week from Saturday, which could go a long way in determining one half of the ACC championship game. Clemson is 1-3. That's a major shock as well. What else is there that was interesting in and around college football? I mean, really, the final takeaway is Michigan. I mean, Michigan goes on the road and knocks off Nebraska 30-27. Bryce Underwood was really poised for a really young quarterback, only a freshman there. And Nebraska's a good team. They just still really don't know how to close out games against really good teams, and that's something they're going to have to bounce back from if they want to remain competitive in the Big Ten. So overall, a solid week 4. Looking ahead to week 5, though, let's get into it. The best week 5 college football games, rather obvious. There are 2 on the docket worth noting out of all of the major games. Of course, there's another game in the SEC that we'll briefly touch on as well. There's actually 2 of them. But let's start, though, in the Big Ten. Illinois comes home to Champaign for homecoming weekend opposite USC. Big noon kickoff, noon Eastern, national TV. Huge, 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 huge game. That's a massive game there in Champaign. USC still undefeated. Illinois attempts to avoid its second loss of the year and potentially getting eliminated from the college football playoff. We'll get into that in a more broader preview sense. But let's talk about some of the other games and highlight some other ones. A rematch of the Big Ten championship game, Penn State versus Oregon, number 6 versus number 3 in Happy Valley. That's the whiteout game. That'll be a huge game as well. And of course, not to mention Iowa hosting Indiana this Saturday in one of the toughest environments in college football at Kinnick Stadium. Can Indiana avoid a trap game of sorts in that one? UCLA goes to Northwestern. Northwestern looking for a bounce back win after losing to Oregon a couple weeks ago. UCLA is still seeking its first win of the year. Something has to give there in that one. Minnesota plays Rutgers. That's an interesting game too. Those are 2 teams that have a chance to maybe win 7 or 8 games and get to a decent bowl game. I think this game will go a long way in determining that, but I do think that PJ Fleck is the better coach, and I think he'll do enough to outcoach Greg Schiano in that one. Some other games to look at. Obviously, one that no one is really talking about, or at least giving the proper attention to, Washington versus Ohio State. Ohio State is still number 1. Washington is that long home winning streak, if you will. It's going to be a raucous environment. Jed Fish wants it to be as loud as possible. I don't blame him. Is that on alert for an upset bid? I'm not really sure, but I think that's one to look at as well. That's a huge game. There are a couple other games too. The 2 in the SEC. Of course, I wanted to highlight LSU against Ole Miss, and then of course Alabama versus Georgia, 17 versus number 5. Those are instant classics. You take a look at last year's game. Could it go any similarly this year? I'm not sure. Alabama, a completely different team with Ty Simpson at quarterback. Obviously, Georgia looks a little bit different as well. That game should be really interesting and really high scoring. That could go a long way eventually determining one of the two SEC teams representing in the championship game by season's end. It'll definitely be one of those resume type games to where whoever wins this game on Saturday between Bama and Georgia will have a leg up for the remainder of the conference season. So that's a very interesting game as well. A solid week 5 in college football. A lot of exciting games to look forward to on the horizon across all the different conferences, but particularly in the Big Ten and the SEC. So, with that being said, let's get into it a little bit more briefly here. Illinois, Indiana, again, as I alluded to, 63-10 loss for the Illini. Worst loss in a really long time. Indiana with a signature program win, one of the biggest wins in recent program history. It's got to be up there in the top 10 all time, maybe even the top 5. Dominant win for the Hoosiers and Fernando Mendoza. This is a game, though, that Illinois needs to put to bed. Half of their defense was injured. Luke Altmaier was not able to be protected overall. And, I think it's one of those ones where, I feel almost disappointed in the fact that Illinois just could not show up, could not show the team that it had shown the first couple weeks of the year. And that touchdown to Colin Dixon was their only scoring play offensively. And that was besides the field goal. And that was really disappointing. I thought that was going to be a high-scoring affair. A lot of people were billing it as the game of the day. Some were calling it one of the biggest games of the year. And it didn't live up to that whatsoever, despite over 2 million people watching it on NBC. But still, it's a game that Illinois is going to have to put to bed. And I feel almost numb to it. But given that it's now Friday, given that it's a new week, and given that it's a fresh start, it's a game that Illinois needs to put to bed if they want, or if it wants rather, its dreams and aspirations to still be in front of it by season's end. And speaking of dreams and aspirations, it's almost time now for my plays and odds predictions presented by Novik. Again, every single week, Bando's breakdowns, odds, and predictions are presented by Novik. And for those of you who don't know what Novik is, here is a message from one of our fellow ETB Network colleagues, Callan McClurg, on how you can get involved in Novik starting literally right now. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Hey fans, Novig is here to change the way you play. Available in 35 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and New York, Novig is America's #1 sports prediction market, and it's 10 times more profitable than traditional sports books because there's no house edge. Instead, you're betting directly against other sports fans just like yourself. Novig is also the only free exchange, which means you keep every dollar you win, whether you're putting plays down on the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, college sports, or even UFC and tennis. Novig gives you the power to pick the best odds, or better yet, set your own. Sign up today with the code ETB Network, and you'll get 1,000 Novig coins plus $5 in Novig cash, and special bonus offers like spending $5 and getting $50 back. Novig, where fans play smarter. You must be 21 years or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Just wanted to give a quick timeout in the middle of the show to remind you guys that Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. I teased it a little bit earlier that there was an announcement coming, and sure enough, without further ado, here we go. Presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And with that, we can get back to the show. All right, welcome back. So once again, Bandits Breakdown odds are presented by Novik. Let's get into the play of the week for me. USC is 6.5-point favorite going to Illinois. We've kind of already beat a dead horse with this one, and I've kind of hinted who I am going for in this game, considering the stakes that are involved here. Unfortunately, if you would have asked me about this game last week, I would have given you a different prediction. But given what we know now and given the results of this past week, I like USC to get the job done, barely covering the number here, 27-20, which means the under on this number will hit. I think it's going to be a lower scoring affair. I do think Illinois plays inspired football, but unfortunately, I think Jaden Mavia outduels Luke Altmaier in a thrilling game, one of the best games of the entire day. USC wins the game with about a minute to go. Illinois will be up for most of it midway through the third quarter, but the defense just given too many holes, and given the loss of Xavier Scott for an undisclosed amount of time, more than likely for the remainder of the year, Brett Bielema was very hesitant to comment on whether or not Scott's status is concrete. It clearly is not. That hurts. And then, of course, looking over at the other Scott, Miles Scott, having to be ejected this past weekend for that targeting call in the first half. That's going to hurt him because he's going to miss the first half of this Saturday's game with a very unfortunate situation there on that targeting call, which looked to me like he was using his shoulder, but what do I know? Anyway, though, I think USC is just simply on all cylinders. I think they'll be well rested, and I don't know. I just think their offense is better. I think they have a much more explosive offense, and this is no disrespect to Brett Bielema, but it seems like Lincoln Riley, in these big spots, even going back to the SEC, kind of knows what he's doing. And this is no slight at Brett, but I think it's one of those games where USC is just going to know what to do. They understand what Illinois' holes are, and I want to be wrong. I really do. I want to be wrong and say that Illinois, is going to be back to playing like they know they're capable, or like it knows it's capable of playing. But my big gripe is the fact that USC's offense has just looked so explosive that it's hard for me to pick against it until it loses. So I'm not gonna go against the grain here. I'm picking USC to go on the road and get a huge road win, and I would love to be wrong. I would absolutely love to be wrong. You guys know this. You guys know that I cover the Big Ten in Illinois extensively, and you guys know how much I want to see this team succeed. But this is one of those games where I just think it's too much pressure. Big noon kickoff. Barstool is going to be there. Sold out crowd. Memorial Stadium. Everyone's the people I've spoken to, they're all on pins and needles about this game. They simply don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to go either, but what I can tell you is I have a sneaking feeling that it is going to be one of those instant classic games where you won't forget where you were when you saw it. And I think it's going to be one of those games where by the end of it, you're going to be exhausted just by watching it. So I think USC gets it done 27-20. Illinois has its second loss of the year going into a road tilt a week from Saturday opposite Purdue, who's actually been playing better football as of late. So we'll see how this game goes. Again, I would love to be wrong. I would love for Illinois to still be in the CFP conversation after Saturday, but I fear that it's going to be one of those losses where we'll be looking at the Purdue game and it's going to be two unranked teams. And again, I hope I'm wrong about that. I really do. But I just have a feeling that the ball is just not going to bounce the right way come Saturday morning. So we'll see what happens. But again, USC -6.5 is the play there. All right, here we go. So switching gears here briefly to some UFC. Conor McGregor tells Fox News that he is fighting Michael Chandler at the White House next summer in Washington, D.C. on CBS for the blockbuster event. Probably the main event of the evening. Let's talk about how I feel about this. It's the same song and dance we're going through as we went through last year in 2024 when UFC 303 was canceled, and in 2023 when the fight initially could not get made. I am not going to believe it until I see the poster. I'm not going to believe it until I see the trailer. I'm not going to believe it until I see the countdown show. So no, I don't think it's believable until it is confirmed. And could it be confirmed by the time this show drops? I don't know if it will be, but what I can tell you is it definitely stirred up a lot of buzz. A lot of people were talking about it. All the sites ran with it. I ran with it. I don't know. I feel like it's one of those where if it happens, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And what I can tell you is seeing his name back in the headlines makes people talk, and I think that that's something that um, is uh, is um, is appealing to a lot of people. Very appealing to a lot of people. So I'm going to say right here, right now, on Friday, September 26th, that as of right now, I don't believe this exact booking will happen. But if I were to predict whether Conor McGregor returns in 2026, I have a good feeling he probably will. So there is that as well. Let's talk about UFC Perth. The UFC schedule is back. It's back in full force. It's back on a regular basis. Let's talk about the card this weekend. It's the final card in the month of September, and it's the rare month that there is no UFC pay-per-view event. That's something to bear in mind as well. There's usually a monthly UFC pay-per-view. I guess you could call it UFC Fight Night Perth, kind of that, because of the start time of the event. It's a 6 p.m. Central start, 10 p.m. Eastern main card, 14 fights on the card. Let's talk about the main event. Carlos Alberg, 12-1 against the former UFC light heavyweight title challenger Dominic Reyes. It's a great fight, number 5 versus number 8 in the division. Let's break down the fight from a tail of the tape perspective. All right, here we go. So Alberg has won his last 5. Dominic Reyes has won 3 out of his last 5, losing his last 2. The age discrepancy is not that much. Reyes is 1 year older than Alberg, 35 to 34. Let's see. According to Tapology, it loves a split. Is what I meant to say here. 50-50 across the board for both of these guys. I see a finish in this fight. And I actually like the former UFC light heavyweight title challenger. I know it's a shocker. I know it's in Perth. I know that Alberg is going to have a lot of fans, but Dominic Reyes has fought inspiringly over the last few, and I think it is going to go very similar to when he finally broke his losing skid against Dustin Jacoby. I think he looked amazing in that fight. I really do. The way he beat Anthony Smith was very impressive, and the way he knocked out Krylov, it was unbelievable. And you have to remember, before that fight, he had lost 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row. And it looked like he was going down the tubes, and it looked like his career was slowly but surely going to be over soon. And the way he's knocked these guys out is very impressive. Carlos Alberg is also a very impressive knockout artist himself. But the knock on Alberg that I would say in this fight is that I just think Alberg has not fought the same level of competition as as Reyes, and the biggest name he's beat is former UFC light heavyweight title challenger Jan Blachowicz. So I think that that's enough against him, and that's why I really like Reyes in the upset bid here. I think he wins in the 3rd round by TKO. I think it's a very, very good fight. I think it's a fun fight. And I think it's a fight where those two are just going to go in the center of the octagon and start swinging, and whoever falls first is going to lose the fight. So give me Reyes to win that one as well in the main event of UFC Perth Saturday night. Let's move into some NFL football now as we round about the show here. The Bears defeated the Dallas Cowboys. Huge, huge win for the first win of the year for Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams threw 4 touchdown passes, which gave anyone and everyone free hot dogs at the Wiener Circle in Chicago on Tuesday from 11 a.m. To 8 p.m. Central. So anybody who got their free hot dogs, congratulations. The Dallas Cowboys defense was horrendous in this game. I really do think the Bears played well. The offense started to gel, was very fluid, and the defense played even better against the Cowboys team that actually looked pretty decent against the Giants, getting that win the previous week and giving the Eagles a game before ultimately losing that one in the end. So I liked how the Bears played. I think it's a huge first win of the year, and hopefully it's more wins to come. And let's preview it. Bears Raiders in Vegas. Bears a 1.5 point underdog, according to Novig. I don't know. I am very excited for this game. I think it's one of these games where you don't know where the Raiders are at, but you clearly know that the Bears have all the momentum riding on it or on them here, and I think the Bears get a road win. The Bears have played really well in this series as of late. winning the last game in Vegas and also winning the last game in Chicago as well, from what I can recall. But overall, though, the Bears, I think, played well enough last week to win, and I think they'll do the same thing this week. And I think it's one of those games where I'm really excited to see which Bears team shows up. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be one of those games where if Caleb Williams can go into a hostile environment and win, it goes to show that he can win on the road and at home. And the Bears' schedule is only going to get tougher from here. So to get to 2-2 going into the month of October, and with the schedule getting much harder, especially with their AFC crossover opponents, I think would be very, very interesting. And I also think overall, though, that the Bears, need to keep this momentum going because they're one of these teams where a lot of people think they are a fringe NFC wildcard contender, and this is one of those games that they can't afford to lose, given that the Raiders maybe are on a similar trajectory as the Bears. But the Bears, I just think, are a little bit better. I think Vegas is disrespecting the Bears in Vegas, and I think the Bears will do enough to pull out a close win. I'm going to say 26-23. The Bears win the game over the Raiders, and it's going to be a thrilling finish, last-second field goal, and a late game that not a lot of people are going to be watching, but people will check the score, and I think we'll be really, really surprised because everybody will be watching Ravens-Chiefs. So there's that as well. And then finally, to wrap up the show with two more topics, one thing that I saw, Ferris State played a game against UT Rio Grande Valley this past weekend. They were favored by 97 points, and they failed to cover the spread. And I'm not joking about this. They won the game. I think it was 78-0. Failed to cover the biggest spread I've ever seen. Unfathomable stuff. Unfathomable stuff. I don't know who made this line. I don't know how this line even made the books, but what I can tell you this is you won't see a score or a spread like that ever again in college football. FCS, FBS, NAIA, I don't care. That won't be happening for a long time. Ferris State can hang their heads knowing they didn't cover the number. But in any event, though, if I was a betting man on that, I would have picked Ferris State, or excuse me, UT Rio Grande Valley to at least cover, because I think that was clearly way too many points. If they can't cover 97, then nobody can cover 97 regardless of who the team is. So there's that as well. All right, let's get into Zain Zinger. Mike Gundy fired as the now former head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. This is long overdue, man. I mean, I think clearly the game has passed him by. He's been coaching Oklahoma State for a long time. And this team just isn't what it used to be. It's as simple as that. This team lost its aura. Oklahoma is clearly better. Overall, that southern part of the country, I think, has gotten much more lucrative, and I just simply think Oklahoma State just couldn't keep up. I mean, losing to Tulsa, that's as bad as you could possibly get there, and that's one of those games that you needed to win in non-conference play to show that you had a chance in conference play, of course, starting this week. But nonetheless, though, he had a pretty solid career. He had a lot of funny moments at press conferences and stuff. Of course, the infamous "I'm a man, I'm 40" quote sticks out. That used to be our old FP5 intro before we went to musical intros only to avoid the copyright strikes on our channel, but made that old intro rest in peace. That was a funny intro, and it was cool that we were able to include him in it because it's one of the most famous quotes in college football, and it's one of the most famous no context quotes too that people can just use whenever they feel like it. That's something that I thought was very, very interesting as well. And what I think is interesting about this is I think he's going to go off into the sunset. He's going to enjoy whatever it is he's going to enjoy, but I think his legacy at Oklahoma State is one of mixed emotions. There were a lot of classic wins for him over the years, but there were a lot of forgettable games. And that part, I think, is the most disappointing part. And again, he's one of the last coaches of a dying breed. He's one of these last pre-NIL coaches that simply could not keep up with the not with the times per se, but just with the amount of pressure to win and compete and all that stuff. And I think that was a big crux and a big culprit of the whole thing, which is something that Oklahoma State firmly believes that it can fix in other ways. So they parted ways with him. It's very, very disappointing, though, from a Oklahoma State fan's perspective, knowing that its coach, this name and folk hero in the sport, is no longer a part of it. It feels very strange. It feels very, very strange, and I think it's going to take a while for OK State to get over and then some. So something to bear in mind there as well. No errors this week, so thanks again for a clean show, and thanks for listening to me ramble on for the last 30 or so minutes. But it's definitely a fun time, and yeah, thanks to you guys for that. Just a few quick reminders before we get out of here, though. Again, listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, and so much more. Would be greatly appreciated if you guys checked me out on all of those. It would make me very, very, very happy if you guys left me a review, added me to your RSS feed, and just added me to your playlist, because the more your playlist can curate, the more the algorithm knows to keep me in there, so you guys can keep listening to me on a weekly basis. So it would be very much appreciated if you guys did that. And then again, just as a quick reminder as well, you can go to youtube.com/CTB Network, subscribe to the channel, and please be sure to hit the like button, hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss a single episode of Bando's Breakdowns. So for myself, Zain Bando, again, I'm a sports journalist and ETV Network host. For myself, Zain Bando, and everybody else at the Empty the Bench podcast number, this has been Bando's Breakdowns, episode 61. My name is Zain Bando. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. We'll catch you guys next week for more sports action as per usual as we get closer and closer to Halloween. I'll see you guys soon. Have a good one.